Salutations, Lumineers, and welcome back to the Lorcana Rundown. I'm Silver.
I'm Andrew.
And today we have even more spoilers.
Yay!
It's finally getting into that season. We're starting to see a lot more trickle out from Ravensburger, so hopefully soon we'll have some more of the good sauce, maybe start seeing chunks instead of just a dribble.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
We also have some Q&A follow-ups. So there was a surprise rulings Q&A. As of when we are recording, it was yesterday. Whenever this gets up, I don't know. But they really hit on some cool card interactions and rulings. So we're going to just touch on that. Do you want to start with the spoilers or the rulings?
Let's start with spoilers. Let's start with the fun stuff.
The fun stuff. All right. So for me, the coolest thing, and this was the first spoiler I saw from the batch, is Cogsworth talking clock. So Cogsworth is the sort of fussy butler figure in Lord of the Rings. What am I talking about? Beauty and the Beast. Where did Lord of the Rings come from?
Who knows?
I think it's because that board game over there. So Cogsworth talking clock. He is a Sapphire uncommon, inkable 2-drop who has a 2/3 body. He quests for 1 lore. So that doesn't sound too exciting, but what really is cool is his ability. So it's called Wait a Minute, and your characters with Reckless gain 1 lore. So that just screams put me into Ruby Sapphire.
Yeah, for sure. That seems like that can be pretty good for Ruby Sapphire, especially with all the Reckless that are in that color.
Plus you have plus you have the early drops. Like the one that comes to mind the most is Gaston.
Yeah.
And we're seeing some really cool stuff get set up right now in terms of Ruby Sapphire, just because we've got the Shift Gaston now, we've got Cogsworth, so and that kind of brings us to our second spoiler, Cogsworth Grandfather Clock. He is a super rare, also in Sapphire. He's an inkable 5-drop with shift 3, so he's clearly meant to be shifted on top of Talking Clock.
Yeah.
He's a 2/5 who quests for 2 lore. He has Ward. And his ability, Unwind, your other characters gain resist 1. So remember, in set 2, we're getting the resist keyword. So it's resist X, where X is the number of damage reduced on a character. So if they have resist 1, that means any damage done to that character, whether it be from an ability or from a challenge, is reduced by 1.
Nice.
So that is really, because early game you can get your Gaston out.
Yeah.
You can get some lore with Gaston. And then a couple turns later, you can shift in your Cogsworth Grandfather Clock.
Yeah.
His damage is reduced, so now he can challenge more. And then later on, you can shift in your Gaston so that he does Gaston things.
So he just is a Gaston. Got it.
He's just a Gaston. He's just a guy.
So the next spoiler we got that I really, really like is called Bounce. It's Emerald. It's an uninkable 2-drop action. Return chosen character of yours to your hand and to return another chosen character to their owner's hand. So there's a couple things that could work really well with this. You can bring something back to your hand, like let's say a Maleficent, something that helps you card draw, or maybe something that is high on the damage counter but you don't want to go away just yet. You can bounce that back to your hand to bounce one of your opponent's characters back to their hand, or if you want to bounce something else back to your hand, you could do that as well. It's not limiting just to your opponents.
And we did have a little bit of a discussion before the start of the show. I thought that you couldn't target your characters with Ward, but we went back, we double-checked it. The wording of Ward specifies that it can't be targeted by your opponent's abilities. Yes. So your own characters with Ward are legal targets for bounce.
Yes, because you're not the opponent. Best way to put it.
Unless you're me and you make a lot of play errors, then you might be your own opponent.
You might be your own opponent at that point. But no, in actual sense, no, you're not the opponent. You're your own person. You're good there. But this next card I'm going to spoil works really well with bounce. And it's Merlin Shapeshifter, a rare amethyst. It's a 4-drop inkable character. It's a 1/5 that quests for 1 lore. And it has an ability called Battle of Wits. Whenever one of your other characters is returned to your hand from play, this character gains +1 lore this turn. So if you're running an Amethyst Emerald deck and you have Bounce in, right there is a 3 lore for Merlin. If you choose to bounce one of your characters plus the character you have to bounce anyways. Works really, 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 really well.
And what's nice is in that color combination, you've also got Befuddle.
Yeah.
So for 3 ink, you're gaining 3 additional lore on Merlin if you have enough babies, I guess, to low ink cost characters to bounce back. And our last spoiler for today is the Prince Never Gives Up. This is the Prince from Cinderella, and he is an uncommon in steel, unsurprising since Cinderella is also in steel. He is an inkable 3-drop with a 1/3 body who quests for 2 lore, so he's kind of in there with Flynn Rider in terms of how much he quests for.
Sure.
He has bodyguard and resist 1, which makes him play in really well with Musketeer Tabard.
Yeah.
Because that just adds to the number of bodyguards in steel, and that creates a really significant amount of card draw.
Oh, for sure. I think that's gonna be a fun one to watch out for, to see if we can get the bodyguard tribal working.
I think bodyguard typal, especially for people that aren't running Amethyst or Amber, is really going to help out.
Yeah.
Because steel has enough bodyguard characters just in that color to create a draw engine.
For sure.
So I think that's all we had in terms of spoilers. I don't think anything new has come out in the last 12 hours.
No, I don't think so.
So the rulings Q&A. There wasn't a lot of new ground hit on the rulings Q&A. People had a lot of the same questions they already have. Of note, we learned that Darkwing Duck is not in set 2.
A shame.
It is. I wish I'd written the quote down exactly, but it was something to the effect of, "I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the card that is not in this set." So I really appreciated that response from the devs. So one card-specific ruling I found pretty interesting because I actually had an issue with the wording on Reckless, is the combination of Iago. So Iago is in green. He has that ability. You exert him and you give target character Reckless. And then Gaston, the red Gaston, who has Reckless already. So what do you think? Does targeting red Gaston with Iago give him 2 instances of Reckless?
I am going to say no, and I'm only saying no on this because with other card games I've played in the past, you can't really double up on keywords like that. I know in Magic you can't just give something like haste and haste. For this, I would say that it only already has Reckless, so it's not going to give it another thing of Reckless.
And you are correct in that. So Gaston, Arrogant Hunter, already has Reckless, so if you target him with Iago's ability, the ability fails, which means he doesn't get the persistent Reckless ability.
Right.
And that matters because with the shift Sapphire Gaston, that means even if red Gaston is targeted by Iago, you can still quest with your Sapphire Gaston because he doesn't have that persistent cannot quest ability. Right.
Plus, it's something that's being added on. It's an actual ability that's being added on by Cogsworth. It's not it naturally going the questing. It's you exert it to gain a lore. You're not questing with it.
That was actually our 4th ruling. We were still talking about Reckless.
Well, I was already here. I was just already here.
You're getting a little ahead of yourself there.
It's what I do about rulings. I just keep going with the flow there. So we've covered number 4 there.
All right. So yeah, we'll just skip ahead to number 4. Cogsworth's ability, where you exert and gain 1 lore, does not stack. So if you have multiple Cogsworths out, you can only get 1 lore off of your reckless characters, unless you have a way to ready them. If you can ready them, you can just keep exerting.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But also for Eye of the Fates, which you exert to give target character an additional lore, that will not add to the amount of lore you get from Cogsworth, because, as you said, it's the ability causing it to get the lore. It's not questing.
Yep. The last ruling we got is with Musketeer Tabard and multiple bodyguards, which I love my bodyguards. I've been trying to build a deck with nothing but bodyguards just to be that annoying person on the field. And it's still a work in progress.
Works really well with Amber Steel, though.
But, yeah, so go ahead and dive into this one, just because your shorthand's a little weird for me.
My shorthand's too weird?
A little bit. So go ahead and explain.
I'll start typing our outlines.
Yeah.
So with Musketeer Tabard, you exert it to draw a card for each bodyguard you have active. If you have multiple bodyguards active, obviously you draw multiple cards. So the question was, can you do things between the draws? And the answer surprisingly was yes, which to me is a little, it's got a little bit of cognitive dissonance to it. So I don't quite get it, because there's no stack in this game. And generally speaking, you resolve an effect entirely before you can put another trigger out.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the interaction with Rockstar Stitch and Bodyguard Simba. Because when you go through it with Rockstar Stitch, it says whenever you whenever you play a character 2 or less, when it comes into play, you may exert it to draw a card. With Simba, you can play the card exerted. So basically what you're wanting to do is you wanted to enter the field not exerted, because you may exert it because of bodyguard. You say no to that, but then exert it to the Stitch. So you kind of have those little bit of interactions where you kind of can manipulate the board in your way just to, gain an advantage, like card draw or something along that line.
But for this, with the Musketeer Tabard, what the devs said in the QA is that if you want to, you can trigger effects between draws. So if you had something on the board, I don't know if we have anything in the game like this yet that triggers when you draw a card.
I don't think so. Not that I remember.
But if you theoretically had an ability on the field that said when you draw a card, do X, say ping target character for 1, you would draw the card, the effect would trigger, then draw your second card, the effect triggers, and so on and so forth, which, like I said, it seems weird to me, especially since they specifically said with Dr. Facilier, if you draw, or if you cast a song, the song completely resolves before his draw trigger goes off.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I'm having the difficulty understanding how that situation is different from the Musketeer Tabard.
I think it's... Yeah, that's a weird one. I don't know if I would agree with the devs on that one, because usually you have to complete the action before something happens. Now, I could see it. Now, there could be a possibility where you have the trigger go off. I'm trying to think about this one.
So
you know what? I actually agree with the devs now. Now my brain's thinking about it, because if you have let's say we have a card that says you gain 1 lore for each card you draw. That's really broken and powerful. I understand it, but this is just an example.
A whole new world, 7 lore.
Basically, yeah, that would be crazy. But for this example, like let's say we have a card that says you gain 1 lore every time you draw a card. So you draw the card, gain the lore. Draw the card, gain the lore. I think it's more... I don't think it's necessarily about rules, necessarily. I think it's about pacing of the game and how the game functions. Because I do believe there are some... There's going to be things in the future where that's going to matter, because there's no interaction. There's no, instant speed stuff where I'm doing stuff on your turn and you're doing stuff on my turn. Yet. I say yet. I hope they don't, but I can, we can only hope and dream there.
So the analogy they actually gave that might make this a little clearer, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, is that triggers are basically marbles. And you put your marbles in a bag of triggers that need to be resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take them out in any order.
Sure.
So each draw is a trigger, each separate draw.
Okay.
And then the ability, anything that would proc off of that is another separate trigger.
Okay. Yeah, no, I get it. That makes sense to me. Like, I think it's going to depend on what else it's interacting with, which I think is a hint they're giving us.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That means there's going to be something with card draw where that's going to matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're trying to get that out of the way now.
Well, it seems like they're trying to put card draw in every color.
It needs it.
Yeah, it definitely does. I'm trying to think what color something like that would fit, where when you draw, something happens. I could see it being in Amethyst because Amethyst already has card draw.
I was thinking, like, depending on what the ability is, like Sapphire or Steel.
Could be Sapphire. They're definitely trying to set up Sapphire Steel, it seems like, and Sapphire Ruby. Mm-hmm. So I could see that, but only time will tell as we get more spoilers.
Yeah, I'd say keep a lookout. See what they're going to do with card draw. I could definitely see something where a character gains a lore for every card you draw. I could definitely see something like that happening.
That I can easily see, especially with the sort of trend they're setting with... Oh, crap. Merlin,
there you go.
Merlin, and then we also have Belle already, where she gains lore for the amount of cards in your inkwell? Yeah.
So yeah, no, I definitely think that it's going to be interesting to see what the spoilers have in store for us, especially with some of these rulings, how they're coming out. They're like preemptively preparing, like saying, "Hey, keep a lookout. Let's keep a little bit of a lookout here because we're gonna want to know more as we go."
So we'll also know more once we finally get the comprehensive rulings, which we still haven't gotten.
Yeah.
The Lorcana site has not updated yet, sadly. We have the kind of beta documents that were leaked. So
Gotcha.
I think that's everything we had today.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us on the Lorcana Rundown. I'm Silver.
I'm Andrew.
And we will see you next time.